Hey everyone, so we have another exciting tutorial. Today we're going to be talking about basically taking a existing creature, monster, enemy, and making some small changes. We're going to be using Blender, so we don't have anyone worrying about whatever expensive package. It's for free, so you can go in and make some modifications. I am, just for full disclosure, not an artist in any way, but I know my way around Blender well enough to do this demo. So I want to go in and first find a creature. I want to do Rhino. So I'm going to make my Rhino pregnant. One of the things I've already done is made a pregnant croc. Don't ask me why, it's just fun. Whatever. So very first thing we got to find is go into the meshes. Inside of NPCs, you'll find all of the different creatures that are in there, the bats, the camels, cobras, etc. Well, we're going to be looking at Rhino. We're going to do some changes to him. Maybe we'll make him a lumpy horn. I don't really know. But let's take a look at him. So right now, he's just a static mesh sitting here, a skeletal mesh, excuse me. One of the very first things we need to do with this guy is we're going to go to his asset. We're going to right click, go to Asset Actions, and then Export. So this is going to create an FBX. I'm going to save this off, and then I'm going to go into, so I'm going to go into Blender. I'm going to import that FBX that we had there. Let's hop into that folder. We're going to grab Rhino. So now we have him. He's in here. Some very annoying things happen, unfortunately, when you export. You'll see this created a bone called sk_rhino. That is actually the wrong root. So we're going to have to fix that before we're done here. It's quite a pain, so we'll get to it. But for now, let's just go into all right, so we're going to go in and select him, go down here to Sculpt Mode, and now we can make some small changes. Let's do, oops, sorry. So let's make his sides lumpy. And we're going to give him an extra horn out of the top of his head. Yeah, I'm so bad with Blender. This will do just fine. So what I'm going for is just something visible that we can notice right away. A giant lump out his forehead and some bulging sides should be great. We'll probably call him Lumpy Rhino. That seems like an appropriate name. Let's give him some more lumps then, because otherwise he won't really reach his true potential. All right, so our poor cancerous Rhino, this is mirroring right now, by the way, so that's why it's happening on both sides. By default, it is set up for mirroring, and you can do all kinds of stuff in Blender. Feel free, by the way, to use whatever package makes you happy. So at this point, we're good. We have our lumpy Rhino, and we're ready to export him back out almost. So the next thing we're going to have to do is we have to get rid of that extra bone I was talking about. So the SK Rhino, this is generated when you export the FBX. Unfortunately, that means that it ends up being, let's just call it a mess. So we're just going to go in and delete this. A really unfortunate thing happens. He gets resized to some massive amount. I don't know why. Something with the overall size. So it doesn't really affect anything except for when you first drag him in. So Let me see if I can find a way to fix this. I'll take a quick break to dig in. Okay, I did a bit of digging around. We have to select this guy. Unfortunately, I don't know how to scale the exact right amount, so we're just going to go with some reasonable guesses. I'm sure it's wrong. The interesting thing is, once it goes back into Unreal and the animation is played, it applies the original bones because the scaling is actually screwed up on the joints and the rigging itself. So once it gets applied to the original skeleton, it'll be fine. It just is kind of crazy. So we're just going for something reasonable. .1 and 0.01. That's about right. I think it just goes 10 to 1. So this guy is our lumpy rhino is looking pretty good. The rig bone root is the root, so we're gonna export this. If you don't do that, it will not import again. So it's a little bit of a challenge. So let's call this guy Blender. So that way we know I exported it out. So at this point we have created this. Let me get rid of this out of the scene. I want to drop our new guy in. Now when it comes in, it's not going to have the textures. So I'm actually going to have to go in and do a bit of cleanup there. Not really a big deal. All right. Actually, I want to make sure. Something to note. Make sure you always put all of your resources into this folder, or you're going to have cook problems whenever you drop anything new in. So there's several files we need to create as we go through, but we'll go at them one at a time. So first things first, let's drop in this Blender model. So this is our export. We're going to actually select the skeleton, the SK Rhino skeleton. That way we can map all of the existing animations which are associated with this skeleton, so we don't have to do anything weird or any remapping. Because the bone structure matches, we shouldn't have any issues. That is exactly why we have to delete that root bone, or it gets very confused. It says there's multiple roots and a bunch of other issues show up. So at this point we want to make sure we have skeletal mesh. I do not import materials or textures, or it'll create all kinds of whatever it has as empty textures. We don't need any of that stuff. So at this point it's created two things. A physics asset, make sure you leave this here, you'll need it, and a untextured rhino. So let's take a look at him. He looks pretty lumpy. That's great. All right, so very recognizable. He looks more like a cow, actually. That's cool. All right, you can see he has a Funcom default texture. So let's fix that guy. So let's go and take a look at the Rhino Material section. So over here, sometimes I pull up both windows to see. I pull up the existing mesh just to see what it is. So let's get both of them side by side so we can kind of do remapping correctly. Oh, you didn't let me open both at the same time. Why would you do that? All right, that's one way to do it, I guess. There's the original guy, but where's Lumpy? Really? Amazing. Okay, I guess it's going to be difficult. Let's not struggle. All right, let's drop in Usually there's one for eyes and one for something. Oh, there's only one. That's interesting. Okay. I swear I saw eyes in here though. Alright, how's Lumpy doing? Pretty good. He looks very lumpy. That's nice. Obviously, if you're an artist, you're gonna not want to just throw the old texture on here. You're gonna want to make texture changes too in a very similar process. Otherwise, you're gonna get this stretching and it'll look terrible. But for our purposes, it looks really great. He looks like a super cancerous rhino. All right, awesome. So now that we have our, see, this is really not behaving itself. Something has gone horribly wrong, and I'm not sure why. For some reason it thinks I'm editing the wrong file. I'm going to restart the editor because I think it got a little confused on file names. Yeah, look at this. That is amazing. Okay. Let's save, come back in, pause just for a moment while I restart. Okay, panic was over nothing, but at least we saved everything. So here we have our wonderful rhino. We can take a look at animations, make sure that they look right, which is really important because you may have inadvertently created some issues when you were setting up the new geometry. If you're using existing animation, you can always add your own animations, but I wouldn't right now. I think it's a little more complicated to set up your own animations for all the different things. I know they definitely have predefined names, and I haven't found where that's defined yet. So for now, there we go. He's looking pretty fantastic. Let's see how he runs. Oh, very, very good. Attack charge. Yep. All right, cool. So Rhino's looking good. At this point, we can drop him into the world, give her a go, and I should have put in a default animation. So those are my pregnant crocs. Let me disable that spawner that I set up. That's in the last video, by the way. If you want to go take a look, I created a way to custom spawn different monsters. That's spawning my pregnant croc. What we're going to be doing is actually at the end of this, we're going to set up very shortly, we're going to set up the rhino to spawn from that. So that way you can spawn it just like anything else. There's a few steps that are involved though. So first things first, let's, where are you? Where are you? Oh, this is an older version. All right. Let me just break the link to that so that way it doesn't kick off. And great, that'll do nicely for now. Oh no, there it is. I had the wrong one. Okay. So disabled. Now we should be safe. Okay, good. So next goal is to get this guy, this big hulking beast, into, looks like I'm probably going to die here shortly. Get him animating, doing all the fun stuff. So let's start talking about data tables. Putting in NPC monster is going to be a little bit difficult. There's a lot of different pieces and parts. So let's go first with the name. So a few rules to keep in mind. There's a couple of NPC tables and there's the item table. Item table also has the item name to template ID. So very first thing I'm going to do is put in the common name for this. So they have ranges, so they can add new things to a range. The monsters are in the 20,000 range, and they go up to like 500, something like that. So I chose for the new one because my fear is that as the mods go forward, they'll release a new ID. The ID will collide with yours, and that means you'll have to update your ID in your mod to make it work in the future rather than just maybe a quick recompile. So my suggestion is give a lot of room between what range they've given you on the IDs so you don't have to fiddle with that. Hopefully they'll come up with a better solution to this, but I don't think so. So let's talk about adding our new lumpy, let's call him Lumpy Rhino. Sorry, this is underscored. So Lumpy Rhino is going to be in the 20,851, right after the last one I created. And that is it for this table. So let's save that off. And we're going to go back. Next table is the item table itself. This guy has a lot of stuff. Let's add a new row. And we're going to call this our 20,851 entry. And this becomes, so all of the monsters, I'm not sure how this relates. I don't see any specific code to XX, but they're all that way, so there must be a reason. I'm not going to buck the trend. I'm just going to say great XX Lumpy Rhino. That is the same for the short description, the long description. The icon Rhino. So they actually use some other stuff. The icon doesn't really matter. I think for other monsters, they use the generic one, which is like, you know, let's see. Oh man, it's way up at the top. I don't know why I'm scrolling like that. All right, nope. Here we go. So they use animal attack. So icon, weapon, animal, dev. I like using regular, but I don't think it's shown anywhere, so it probably really doesn't matter. So at this point, we have a few things that we're going to have to set up. I like to look at the other entries to see what they used to kind of build on that. We see that the other rhinos are using game item weapon for their item class. So game item weapon. So next is the building class, which will be none because this is not for building. Then on down, the visual is going to be, so at this point we need to pause here, hop out, and go over to, let's save what we've got so far. And we actually need to go and find this generic rhino weapon and create our own, because this is going to define a lot of behavior. So let's do that now. So let's go back to our NPCs, go down to our rhino, and inside of rhino, inside of blueprints, oh, I still have my data table filtering on and some text searching. So we have our rhino weapon right here. So we're going to take this and make a copy of it. Let's see, make sure I'm not missing anything. Nope, looks good. So we're going to copy this into our Rhino folder. We're just doing it from the base. Now now let's go in and rename this guy to Lumpy Rhino. So Lumpy Rhino, oops, I didn't mean to double click that. Actually, it's fine. So there is animation packages and a lot of other stuff. We're going to keep almost everything the same. You'll notice equipment socket name, they rely on the bone name, so you have to be careful on that side, not to cause too much headache there. Static weapon mesh. If there was a weapon that was attached, then you'd have to use it. So I think that's all we need from this guy. All right, so next up, so our visual item, our visual object is going to be NPC weapon Lumpy Rhino. That's the one we just created. So next up, action blueprint is none. We're going to set this guy to 1 so it can actually stack up. This defines how many in a stack you can have, and we have to say 1. The other rhinos are set to GUI category armor. Interesting. I guess that makes sense. They are armored. All right. So the next one is very important. This is our visual skeletal mesh. We need to set this to, actually, I don't know if they set it. No, they don't. So we don't need to set it here. It's set elsewhere. We'll get to that later. Flags, this is dev item only. That way it doesn't come up in loot lists and whatever else. Container size is 0 because it's not a container. The armor value is probably something interesting, actually. Let's see. Why does he have no armor value? The other guys. Looking at the right ones. So, Gray Rhino, armor value of 0. Okay. That's cool. So, we'll leave it at that. I thought it was something different for other stuff, but it's on physical surface 26. That was the same thing for the croc, by the way. I don't know what that one is used for. One-handed, you set it to this if they have no weapon. If they have natural weapons like tooth or claw or whatever, it knows how to deal with it then. No animation or ammunition, excuse me. And then we're going to set up some default values for the, let's see, do we have encumbrance? Any of that stuff? We do have all right, so this is sorry, looking at spreadsheets, I know this is super exciting. I will probably cut most of this out. All right. So let's keep going. Actually, none of this really matters. Let's just set our cone angle, which is kind of the cone which he can see you, to 35, and the max distance to 250. And then the next important ones is damage on light hit and damage on heavy hit. So the default Rhino does 58 and 78. Okay. These are all zeros. And then here, this is a 1 on the item tier. Yep, we don't need to set anything there. All right. Looking good, looking good, looking good. So most of these type of monsters are set to stone damage type. I think this is for building damage and other stuff. So it says, you know, you could set them to iron or steel, and then they'd be able to chew through buildings. So that's obviously not very good, but it might be all right to set him to iron because they're rhinos. They probably could pop through a wall. All right, so knockback, we got 75 on these guys. They have a pretty good knockback, actually. And 75 on their special. And then they probably should have a knockback defense, to be fair. They're gigantic and heavy. But, all right. The rest of the stuff we don't need. All right, so that's it for the setup of this guy. Let's save this off. Now we have a couple of entries here. So next up, let's start looking at the NPC tables. So inside of here we have monster stat table. We'll get to that in a second. Let's do the NPC list table, which is the first place. There's also an enum that matches this. It's really, really important that both are filled out, otherwise it won't be selectable. That took me a little while to figure out, unfortunately. Wildlife, are these considered a beast or a predator? They're prey, apparently. Interesting. What eats a rhino? I guess dragons would. Prey, lumpy rhino. Okay, so now at this point, let's go out. This requires a NPC. So part of what we have so let's go back again to our blueprints. And we have the blueprint NPC wildlife rhino. This has lots and lots and lots of good stuff about the rhino. We're going to drop this in. This, by the way, is where the mesh is set on new critters. So we're going to drop this in here. We're going to make a copy of that. We're going to rename it to Lumpy Rhino. Okay, now let's open this guy up and set some parameters. So there is a lot of stuff. Very first thing, we created that custom physics, Rhino Blender physics asset. We're going to switch to that. That's for Ragdoll. The one that it outputs is mapped to the bones correctly, so it'll work just great. If you feel like going through this, feel free. It's exhausting to go through everything, so I'm not even going to attempt it. But everything is pretty straightforward. And if you're using some similar animal, it'll be most of everything you need. Fortunately, we're using the exact same animal. We just made them lumpy, so it's obviously much easier. Physics material is going to be the same. And then, let's see. All right, so that's it for this. Now we need to go into the mesh. And we're going to go up and switch the mesh out with our SK Rhino Blender. Boy, that's annoying. All right, so that gets us our mapping to the actual mesh. That's pretty much all we need to do here. At this point, we've got everything we need for this particular file. So this is our blueprint NPC wildlife lumpy rhino. So let's compile that, and as soon as it's done, save it. So now we can go back to our data table, which was our NPC list table. And at this point, Lumpy should be in there, which he is. So great, that's our first bit. Next is behavior tree. I think this is going to be an attacker. Let's see what the other rhino is. Yeah, it's an attacker. So there's different behaviors based on the type of thing it is. This would be a rabbit. This would be a, I don't know what. Dialogue NPCs just kind of hang around and walk about. Fleeing obviously runs away. Non-aggro stationary. This is most of the thralls that are like dancers and stuff like that. And then attacker is for like a standard attacking monster. And then human would be the humans around the bonfires and whatnot. Okay, so at this point, we've got, we shouldn't have to add any of this stuff actually. Just the name and the AI controller. So the AI controller is just going to be, oh, there's a custom one for Rhino. Sweet. Okay, that's neat. All right. I want to see what this one's set to. Yeah. Oh, that's nice. So they gave custom behavior for rhinos. All right, so let's call this guy a rhino. Spelling is super important. There's a bunch of places you can spell things wrong, and it will all go horribly wrong if you do. Speaking of which, I'm going to copy this exact row name, and we're going to go out and we're going to find the enum for, so NPC let's see, we want probably miscellaneous, user interface, boogers, C++ classes, no. I think it's NPC. Sorry, give me one moment here. NPC list, and then all right, so there's one more thing here. There's the NPC List Zoo table. That is for things that you can capture. So let's go to here in the folder view. Give me one moment while I look this up. Okay, so it's actually NPCs. That's why I typed NPC. I couldn't remember anything else because that's all there was. It was just NPCs, plural. This is the full listing of all of the names that we saw from the other list. So we're going to add a new one. Probably. Let's see. New. There we go. And that creates a row at the bottom. And we just are going to paste the same name that we used in the NPC list table. So speaking NPC list table, at this point we have all of our things. We're matching on here, looking pretty good. I think we're pretty close to done. Let's save this guy off. And let's go back in. There's a couple more things that we need to take a look at. Give one moment, and so inside of here, okay, I had to do a bit of digging around there. So the monster stat table I talked about just briefly, and then went, oh, I forgot what this guy is. So basically the idea is this is based on the physics asset name and it doesn't match, and then based on that it'll get the health, the armor, and XP. That is still set to the standard Rhino, so we don't have to worry about that, but you could potentially add a custom one. So at this point we're ready to go. Just quick review: NPC list, the NPCs enum have been modified. They point to all the different classes we had to create for the Rhino, which is inside of this guy, which includes the Rhino Skeletal Mesh, which has the skeleton, the new physics asset, and the NPC weapon, which is, since he has none, is just a placeholder almost. Next is the blueprint, which contains the mesh definition and everything else. So let's go in, and I have a little spawner that will actually just create stuff for us. I believe it's this guy. We have another one too. Let me get rid of that. So this guy right now is fun because it sticks them in a wall, so I don't have to worry about them hunting me down. So I left it right where it's at. So last time we were in here, I believe I disabled it. Actually, sorry, wrong one. Custom spawner enabled, and select that guy. So let's go into this and let's select the Lumpy Rhino. It gets this list from the enum NPCs, and then this name has to match the other the NPC list name. That's how it does the mapping, and it actually returns it. So at this point it'll spawn these guys. I'm gonna get rid of that. I know it was in the right spot. Let's put it right back and see. So I had to re-record this section because the audio was on in the background, which was just horrible. So at this point, a little anticlimactic, but we're gonna hit go and it will play without some horrible recorded sounds going on. So you guys can actually run. Oh god. Oh, this is horrible. Okay. Yeah, that was fun. Well, I got completely surrounded and killed instantly. So run away. Okay, here they come. Hooray. Wow. Very angry. Alright, so there's Lumpy. He's attacking with great vengeance. Alright guys, so that's it. Thanks for watching this tutorial. Maybe a little bit rambling, but I appreciate you keep sticking to it. And please leave a comment. Let me know if there's anything I can help you with, or if there's anything you want to see in the future. Thanks a lot.